Hey, trying to do my rapid fire little updates. Chapter 8 of The Inconvenient Indian, a curious account of native peoples in North America by Thomas King. This chapter is sort of about sovereignty, the fact that Native people want sovereignty, or a good hunk of Native people want sovereignty. Not all Native people want sovereignty. That's actually one of the main other points that you get in this is that not all Native people, it's one of these things. It's not a monolith. But the idea of sovereignty, that, the Native people who want it, and the governments who definitely do not want to give sovereignty, full sovereignty to native peoples. Stuff like, having a passport, which wasn't recognized by England when it was crossed over, when it was used by, I think it's the Cherokee Nation, trying to get to Britain. It did get used coming into Canada, but that was only because Hillary Clinton had put in a special request for a waiver, so it wasn't probably actually honored. Um, but yes, the idea of sovereignty, things like, getting Jeffrey Simpson saying like, oh, it's impracticability, you can't actually have such small groups of people with getting sovereignty, where you know it seems fairly obvious that much smaller groups are actually able to have sovereignty. And King makes the argument, well, we already just provide all our own services and things like that, so how does this do? But making the key point of getting rid of something like the Indian Act or treaties, uh, you know putting all this stuff together, it's like the federal government views, there's very different views on both sides of like, oh, we should renegotiate things. And on the federal side, Canada speaking, it's like, yeah, so there does no longer has to be native people. You just become a part of us, is the viewpoint. Whereas a very different point of view on the native side of, no, we become sovereign nations, our own peoples. Can't remember if it's this chapter in the last. There is sort of the stuff about, native people having their own kind of fairly heated discussions over who is a native, who is a real person of a community. There's been, I think this was the last chapter, just this whole idea of like, basically you go 2 generations not having married, not having married pureblood Indian, and your your legal status as a native person is erased. So this has the the effect, I'm sure quite intended, that within a couple of generations you lose a ton of your population that way, through any kind of like intermarriage. They will be illegally extinguished from being native peoples anymore, legally, as far as the government is concerned, which is what the government seems most eager to do, even in this modern day, is to get rid of native peoples, and just have them absorbed into the dominant culture. The dominant culture, yes. Also stuff in this chapter with sovereignty, the whole idea of, how are native peoples going to make money, and things like gambling, things like mining, um, things like tourism, things like renewable things. But there being some pretty bad cases of like mining of like coal and uranium, which have left native peoples with destroyed, poisoned, poisoned lands, which has got its negative things. And King, is kind of ambivalent about the whole gambling thing, because it doesn't, um, it's not a great. It has tends to bring out the worst in people. Um, that said, he's also said like these are places that are desperate for some kind of an income. They've been shoved onto lands that are basically were deemed the most worthless lands. Notes that there's some places where they have gotten cash, and what they've done is they've started buying up land. At least in the United States, they've bought up land, and then had it put into their their land reserves. So there's that kind of specter of Native people increasing their land base, and this freaking out politicians. Also, I guess especially because, like, we don't get the taxes on them. But also just probably the racist thing of, oh my God, the natives are taking over. This hasn't been the case in Canada. I think it has to go through, like, land treaties and stuff like, and federal proclamations, which is like, that would, you know wait 20, 30, 50 years for one parcel of land to get moved over and then start again. So yeah, that's it's interesting chapter that way, just the whole thing of sovereignty. And I mean, yeah, him ending off with, like, what do native keeps on getting asked, what do native people want? And it's like, well, do they want sovereignty? Do they want proper proper services? Do they want a nice mid-level truck? It's like, and it could be yes to all of the above or yes to only some of them. Um, Depending on who you ask, it is a diverse population who all have their own particular, different different nations within that all have their own different goals, and the people within those nations have their own different goals. They're like people. So yeah, that was this chapter of the Inconvenient Indian: A Curious Account of Native Peoples in North America by Thomas King. More videos later.